Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's Health Tech Entrepreneurs Meetup with Carol Politi. And our topic is financing strategy, how to balance both dilutive and non-dilutive funding for a tech startup. So we're going to start with our usual introductions. So when I call on your name, please unmute yourself if you'd like to introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what you're working on. If there's help you're seeking, or if there's help you can provide, now is a great time to let everyone know. So I can start. Hi, my name's Neo. I am founder and CEO of Neurosonics Medical, a neurosurgical device startup. I'm also the VP of Business Development at the MDC Studio, and I'm also an associate at the Verte family of venture funds. So now I will call on, I'll skip over Carol because I'll introduce her more later. Gil?
Oh, so I'm the founder of the MDC Studio and a retired rodeo cowboy. Was that what I said? Anyway.
Great, thank you. Carol Teolis?
Hi.
Hello. Bill Hall?
Hi, I'm Bill Hall. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Triangulate Labs that's about to bring to market a new software as a medical device that is a better option for total body photography for catching skin cancers.
Awesome, thank you. Frederick?
Hi, I'm Frederick Abramson, the founder of Golden Thread Technology. We're building a platform that uses DNA analysis and big data, AI, machine learning to identify and reduce the risk of injuries to athletes, particularly kids. Fact is that 1 in 8 kid athletes get injured severely enough to require medical attention. And on the adult side, it's 1 in 12. Turns out DNA provides insights into relative risks and then identifies potential action steps to reduce the risk.
Awesome, thank you. Jeff?
Hi, my name is Jeff Kerr. I'm the founder and CEO of Modular Matter, Inc. And we're working on modular prosthetics and orthotics. I'm also a principal engineer at MDC.
Awesome. Jennifer?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I am a doctoral candidate at the Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. My focus is on housing affordability, which is quite relevant in the times that we're in right now. And I am exploring a venture to turn my doctoral work into a for-profit company.
Awesome, thank you. Jonathan?
Hi, Jonathan Klaus. I'm a registered nurse and a consultant now, do consulting for clinical programs as well as clinical content writing.
Great. Hamid?
Oh, hey, how you doing now? This
Good,
is
how are
Hamid.
you?
I'm in the tech transfer space. I've been doing commercialization of technologies in healthcare since 2010.
Awesome. Good to see you. Lior?
Hello, my name is Lior Shachaf. I just graduated recently, PhD in Hopkins in computational biophysics. And I have a rich industry background in kind of laser optics and beam shaping deliveries. I'm kind of trying to find, a new endeavor combining the worlds of, data science, machine learning, and optics. There's a few things that leads kind of working with people, but nothing concise yet. And so I'm also happy to hear offers or, opportunities to join other adventures.
Awesome, thank you. Margot?
Hi, everyone. So I'm working on a patch to combine electrophysiological and biochemical sensing to help people better manage their mental health.
Awesome. Tony?
Hi, everyone. I am Tony Ma. I am working on a maternal child health platform that covers from preconception to 3-year postpartum. We've been NIH funded, building a lot of the non-dilutive. So just getting ready to dip our toes into the dilutive arena as we go towards commercialization. So nice to meet everyone.
Oh, wonderful. Vin?
Hi, everyone. My name is Vin. I'm in the DC area and currently working as an independent consultant. My background is primarily in nonprofits around operations and data and strategy.
Great. Tracy?
Hi, everyone. I own a digital marketing agency. I'm based in Maine and recently transitioning over into the Maryland marketplace, so Baltimore and DC. And I'm very interested in startup technology, and I've been more so interested lately in health tech. So I'm just kind of exploring and seeing what's out there and networking.
Wonderful. And last person, Wayne.
Evening, everybody. Wayne Sternberger, recently retired from Johns Hopkins APL so that I could co-found a startup called Blocks and Up. I'm also the CTO, and we are commercializing a novel medical device that will be a neural blockade monitor, give you objective and quantitative information about how well regional and neural blocks are working.
Great, thank you, everyone. I think that was everyone. So now I'll introduce Carol, our speaker today. So Carol is the president and CEO of TRX Systems, a company commercializing a technology that provides position, navigation, and timing in environments that lack GPS. She has an extensive background in marketing, product development, and sales of enterprise, government, and consumer products. And she's built companies leveraging both angel and venture funds and non-dilutive funding. She earned a Bachelor in Electrical Engineering from the University of Maryland, a Master in Electrical Engineering from Johns Hopkins, and an MBA from the University of Maryland's Robert H. Smith School of Business. So now I will hand it off to her, and she will discuss how to balance dilutive and non-dilutive funding.
Thanks very much. So I look forward to kind of running through this. I think we've left plenty of time for kind of questions and dialogue. Now, do you want to hold that to the end, or do you want to just take that in as we go?
Oh yeah, it's up to you.
Okay, I can really I'm happy to take questions as we go if there are any. So just a little background, since this is all about financing, I'll give a little background on financing right now. Right now, I'm president and CEO of TRX Systems, which was a company that was built based on a blend of diluted and non-dilutive funding. We were acquired by ACR Group back in January of last year. So now we're part of a bigger company. Prior to this, I had been with Kajit, Magisto, Torrent, all startups that took sort of bigger, venture and corporate venture funding. And we're kind of very different from a financialization and capitalization structure. So I'll give a little. I'll talk mostly about TRX, but I'll give a little bit of background based on those prior experiences when it comes to why you'd want to take more or less of one or the other type of funding. So just a kind of a high level from a trade-off perspective, when you're talking about dilutive funding, really you're talking about angel venture corporate funds, anything where you're selling a piece of the company to somebody else, and non-dilutive, I'm talking about SBIR grants, non-recoverable engineering, prototype or product sales, anything where we're bringing cash into the company that doesn't sell a piece of the company. There's a lot of benefits to taking in venture funding. Some of the benefits are that you're out testing the business case all the time. What's really interesting, kind of when you raise a venture round, whether it's big or small, is you talk to a lot of investors and you get clear and continuous feedback from all of them for on your business case based on what they've just seen and based on kind of what people are investing in the marketplace now. So it sort of forces you to kind of reckon with what's marketable or what people perceive maybe has value. It's a forcing function to get early adopter customers. You've got to parade out references. You've got to show that you understand the cost of customer acquisition. You've got to really kind of force a prototype or something that shows you actually have feedback or kind of a valid concept. And really that's become a much bigger deal in the last a couple of years or even longer than it used to be. A while back it used to be you could kind of you heard people say back of the napkin, you got to raise 10 or 15 million dollars, and people don't really do that anymore. They expect kind of, even angels expect kind of a big amount of testing and customer validation. So finding that early adopter investor who's willing to bet on something that's risky is harder now. You end up with investors on your board who've been sold a specific business plan. So that's an interesting dynamic once you raise money, because in ways it's good. You've got people who are kind of measuring you every month and who kind of want to see that you're executing on your business plan. It's a forcing function to not get distracted. In ways it's bad because you've got less flexibility to kind of change what you do based on what you're learning. You almost have to validate it again because you have folks that you've already sold one hypothesis and now you've got to kind of resell them on another. So that's kind of something to think about depending on where you are. When you're talking about non-dilutive funding, there's also a lot of similarity there when we're talking about testing of business product concepts. Those proposals get reviewed by experts in the industry. You've got to show business cases, especially with something like NSF funding. You've got to show pretty significant business cases. You need to get partner reference letters, early adopter customer evidence, and really kind of bake that in. Most people don't want to award even not a non-dilutive funding to someone who doesn't have a really strong business plan. I think I saw a hand up.
Yes, good question.
Yeah, so this is Tony. I wanted to know, does the same apply if you're like raising a safe round? Are you gonna get board members, or is that required for a safe round?
When you say a safe round, what do you mean by a safe round?
So I guess like YC and a couple, there's a safe note. It's pre-money valuation. You don't get pegged to a specific price. Again, I'm moving from the non-dilutive to the dilutive realm, but
right. You still will likely get, you've sold something. So whether or not you've priced the round or not, I mean, everything is subject to negotiation, but you're probably going to end up with an investor on your board or more oversight, whether or not you've priced it or not. What I think you're saying is you floated the price until you raise your next round. And that's pretty common. But even then, you're likely to end up with a board makeup that's different. That's not bad or good. It's just take note, because the dynamic will change.
Thank you.
And then in a non-dilutive funding world, you do control the pace of your spend. The pace of your spend a little bit, and your direction. So you may have, if you've got a mix of kind of angel and non-dilutive funding, you may have more patient investors. You may have investors who realize it's going to take more time, and you may have a little bit more control over that spend and your direction and redirection as you test, your product market fit. So some of the considerations are, what's the maturity of your concept? What's your confidence around your product market fit? Are you pretty confident? Have you done some test marketing? What's the technology and market risk? Is the technology really early stage? Do you control the pace of technology maturation? Is something else driving it? Are you cognizant of the cost of customer acquisition and the overall funding that's going to be required? If you're going after something that is consumer, for example, the cost, you have to assume that that cost of customer acquisition and marketing is a much bigger factor than tech development in a lot of cases. So you've got to really think about, how do I do that? And, can I get started on that and get real evidence on that and figure out, how I convert a customer before I dump money into marketing and things like that. So just kind of a highlight, I'll do some compare and contrast as we walk through. I'm going to show kind of a little bit of an abbreviated history of TRX as it relates to funding, and then kind of you can see how we funded worked for us, and in some cases may have we might have been able to optimize it more for sure. We ended up today just delivering basically navigation devices to warfighters. We're a subsidiary of a larger company. We've shipped kind of thousands of commercial devices. We'll have probably shipped about 5,000 devices by the end of the year to a combination of commercial and military customers. And we've won, a fairly significant award with the U.S. Army to deliver navigation devices for soldiers, which is in production today. So compare that to kind of our early thesis, and it's good actually. Gail and Carol are involved, TLS were involved, and they're on their line from an early thesis perspective. The early thesis was 3D location of firefighters. When I joined the team, which was an established, a small team that was working on a firefighter location system, that was the thesis. The early funding came out of TEDCO, seed and special programs within TEDCO, which is a Maryland early stage investment group. And they, really did do a lot of very early stage kind of risky investment, small money, but early stage risky investment. National Science Foundation, SBIR, which is a kind of a brilliant vehicle. And they also do a lot of early stage kind of risky investment, more risky than I'd say a lot of angels do. We had angel investment, we had some grants, e.g. FIRE grant for prototype sales, but we had a lot of challenges. The business case was a big challenge. There's a lot of friction, what I call friction in the fire market. How do you get technology adopted rapidly in a group where it's a life safety mission, where they really can't touch stuff. They've got more important things to do than to play with early stage technology. They're in extreme conditions and they've got really limited funding. And then we had technology that was really early stage, high size, weight, power, cost. So against that backdrop, the question was, what do you do? Do you go out and raise money? Do you go? I think where we were was still, what is the product market fit? So we began to position products into kind of other markets, and and the company started to raise non-dilutive funding, continued to raise non-dilutive funding, but really focused on that for a while longer because the technology needed to mature and we were still searching for a product market fit. And this kind of, is a quick picture of that technology maturation. So if you think about, 2009, that device was probably not going to sell in volume. Even 2012, this device is probably not going to sell in volume, really kind of a big device. It wasn't until 2017 that we in volume shipped, what was a small device and really got our first beachhead market. And that's a pretty long time. So if you were to raise money back in 2007 or 9, back in 2007, you would have long run out if you didn't have any non-dilutive funding sources. So you'd have sold part of the company, but also completely run out. So by using a mix of non-dilutive and dilutive funding, and I'll walk through some of the non-dilutive funding streams we used, we were able to kind of not eliminate the outside funding, but certainly extend our runway in a way that allowed us more time to get to a product market fit. And really the company has ramped significantly now since we released the first products in 17, 18 that were more scalable. And especially in 21 and 22, now we've seen significant ramps, but it was primary technology development, really kind of hard R&D, and it took a long time to get through that, wait for the underlying technology, size, weight, and power to mature, and also to just, get a market pull. So our general strategy there was we went deep. We focused on developing technology and expertise in a specific area. One thing that's really risky when you start working with grants and SBIR vehicles, et cetera, is there's a lot of ideas out there that are good, and there's a lot of things that you could build. But if you try to kind of go after all kinds of things, you won't go deep, and you won't really deliver a product in the end. So there's, you can see evidence of a whole bunch of companies who are R&D companies, and that's what they do, and they're small, and maybe they take a lot of different, they're focused on developing, kind of a wide breadth of technology in a lot of different areas. We wanted to develop a product from day one, and went very, very deep and focused. And there was a risk there, that we might not, ever find product market fit or somebody who was pulling, because we were pushing for a long time. We did identify, we're fortunate to identify a beachhead market. Our first market was signal mapping in the industrial space. Our first products that were sold as scalable products were products that were used to map cell networks indoors and map firefighter radio networks indoors, so that those network designers could make sure that that they had coverage. So you could get a cell phone call out in a convention center, or your firefighter radio would work in the basement of a new construction. And that was a really terrific beachhead market. It was a market that had hands-on, a really high-end engineers using the products, sending us detailed, feedback on what would make it more easy to use or more valuable to them. And it also saved them a lot of time. Instead of taking 2 weeks to do something, it took 2 days. So the engineering company would be able to do the job better with less money. And that was a convincing business market. We also kind of adapted to the evolving use cases. So we had some patient outside money in, and we had a supportive board, and we were able to kind of adapt what we did as we started seeing pull. And that was really helpful. We did bid a huge array of funding vehicles. I mean, I would have to say, I think we were continually writing proposals for years and years. We took advantage of every innovation opportunity that we saw out there. We scrubbed SAM, we scrubbed, every single, kind of notification of funding. And we spent an awful lot of time in field tests doing, kind of maturing contacts. And then, nuts and bolts, we paid really close attention to the proposal instructions. We complied with every requirement. It's hard to win those things if you don't read every word of the proposal instructions and really, listen to what they say. So when it came to SBIRs, so one of the investments we used was a small business investment research. We had great support from both DARPA and the U.S. Army. And we're able to leverage that to adapt some of what the early TRX team had built for the warfighter application. From 2008 through 2021, we moved from SBIR Phase 1 to SBIR Phase 3, which SBIR Phase 3, you're at Tier 9, shipping commercially, at the end of those projects. And so where the early Phase 1s were really low, were really, kind of early technology and really proving feasibility of an idea or a concept. And as we went through that process with all these different, kind of agencies in the Army or with different groups in DARPA, the underlying technology matured as well. So the components that we were using became smaller, lower swap, and it became more realistic to actually build a commercial product using them. We then took advantage of a bunch of innovation and transition programs supported by DoD transition projects. So we used rapid innovation funding, which was a sector of funding that was intended to bridge the gap. We went after Army prize competitions. that actually were terrific incubators as well, because they really helped us kind of get visibility, hone our messaging. And so in that vein, I would say we went through probably a couple of incubator experiences that were not traditional incubators, but were sort of that were sort of specialized incubators. In this case, as a non-dilutive, this was actually, it was actually a big prize competition. So it was supported by the Army to get more involvement from young companies in Army technology. And then we leveraged some rapid capabilities funds from the Army to get that was designed to expedite stuff to get it out to the field quicker. And we're able to benefit from that to harden product. During this period, we also raised outside funding. So we did raise funding from Motorola Solutions, which is a corporate venture arm, from New Dominion, which was like kind of a super angel in this DC kind of Virginia area, and the state of Maryland also put a little bit more money in. So one of the other kind of things that's important to note about using a mix is a lot of times you can get to a certain TRL with a lot of these programs, but you can't kind of get over the edge of true commercialization, marketing, productization. And so if you can complement that, if you've got a direction and a business plan and you've got enough of this research and development funding, if you can capitalize on some of these transition programs, but then at the same time overlay with like a corporate venture or a traditional venture, then you may be able to, kind of optimize, how much money you bring in from various sources and get the most done. This is sort of just a kind of a snapshot we put together on what were all the vehicles we used in different years from 13. Like TRX was around before 13, but we just took a snapshot of kind of what were the different vehicles that we benefited from. And I would say, in our particular space, it's certainly not health tech, but I think there are parallels. There's a ton of support for young companies, and we really worked hard to leverage that support. And the Army really, and DARPA and others provided some great avenues for us to really learn about the problems, for us to kind of both develop the technology, or I would say adapt it for the core technology we had for their applications and to meet the customer needs, and then to get in the field and test it as well for in order to get user feedback and optimize it. So we went after, you can see every one of these represented a proposal and kind of a series of marketing and other efforts to try to bring these in and then execute on them, test what we've done, get feedback, figure out how to pull it into the products, and how to make sure that we were really focused on kind of an end game.
We have another question. Go ahead, Tony.
Yes, I just wanted to know, thanks for this roadmap. How much of, I guess, total non-dilutive funding versus dilutive funding to really get, and then I guess, was it like multiple rounds of the dilutive funding as well? So it's a two-part question, can you share?
Yeah, so we took probably, I'm going to be rough here, but I would say maybe 15%, 15% it's 15% dilutive funding and the rest non-dilutive in our case. And the rounds were an angel round, a corporate slash, a Series A, just call it that, which was corporate and kind of a super angel, and then another venture investor. And then we did one or two other funding vehicles afterwards, which were loosely kind of pegged to future valuation, like as you had referenced. So that was probably 3 rounds is what I'd call it. From angel to kind of a Series A. The Series A would now really be considered, a seed 2. It wouldn't really be called a Series A. So in reality, I would say we probably never really got to a Series A. We probably did a seed 1, seed 2, and then a little bridge, and then we started, making money.
Thank you.
So during that process, we came up with a whole, a suite of different applications. The first application was on the lower right. Then on the upper left was the second application that we put out. Third was on the Neon Personal Tracker Mill on this lower left, and then the last was this integrated DAPS, dispense assured position navigation and timing device. So and if you can see, a lot of what we did was tried to develop things with a common software core and even common hardware, but different applications on top, so we could leverage kind of commonality across the product suite as much as possible. And we were really able to, even with that combination of non-dilutive and dilutive funding, stay pretty focused. And I think that's the kind of key to leveraging both streams. Significant DAPS award. This is just a PR thing that is a pretty big transition. That's the word for you're selling a lot of stuff to the military. So we were really pretty excited about that. That award that really brought the scalability of the company to the next step on top of the commercial work that we're already doing. So I talked a lot about about non-dilutive. I know there's some people here to talk about dilutive. I'm happy to address more on venture corporate and the dynamics of taking that money. Since I've done a lot of pitching and raising of larger scale, but this is really, TRX is really a great example of the benefits of a mix, because it does give you a little bit more time as you go through the identifying your product market fit. Sometimes when you sell kind of a big vision, and take in maybe a large amount of money, or sell a lot of the company early on before you really have figured out the product market fit, it's a little bit hard to control how you want to evolve the company over time. It's a little hard to maintain the same nimbleness because you may be in a situation where you've got to resell people on the next direction. Where if you've really got a solid position and you're going to need a lot of money, you can go out and then raise it because you've clearly kind of proven your product market fit, your cost of customer acquisition already. So does anybody have any questions?
Roughly, how much does it cost per little unit you have per tracking each person or whatever? Is it $100 or $1,000? I have no idea.
Oh, that's a good point. It depends on configuration, but with software and a bunch of military integrations, maybe roughly $1,000 a unit. In a commercial kind of SaaS integration where you're paying every month and it's not like one time, it's significantly less than that. It's significantly less than that in some configurations, because then you're kind of paying every month, where a lot of the military customers would prefer to buy that product one time with a perpetual license.
I have a question. What helped to identify and to accelerate your product market fit?
So a couple of things. One was, we were out there enough and kind of making enough noise marketing wise that people started to reach out to us for the Signal Mapper application. So there was a big enough pain point in that market. People were doing things so manually that we had some early Signal Mapper customers reach out to us and say, hey, could we buy your prototype for this? We want to integrate it, and they were going to do the integration. And so we then decided that we would develop that product, and we did a little, kind of skunkworks thing on the side and developed it and sold it to the first partner. And that, that really got us to the first, product, which is like we sold the same thing again and again, to many different customers. So that was one. Two was the market changed and pain points started to emerge in the area of GPS, where the military could always count on GPS in the past to navigate and manage operations, and then suddenly it began to be denied. It began to be jammed. It was really easy to prevent access to GPS, and it's really critical. So then that suddenly became a huge pain point, and it wasn't even it wasn't really us. We had a technology that really lent itself to helping with that. So we began to try to fill those holes.
Thank you.
I have a question too. You mentioned it was a long time frame from first prototype through to where you are now. And the impression I have with non-dilutive funding is often that you're forced into a long time frame because you go through the whole proposal process and figuring out how to win it. And then it's a long time before the award comes out, and then it can be a very long time. What was the competitive landscape like that you were in, and did that somehow afford you more time than in a highly competitive market?
There was a ton of people going out. There was many companies going after 3D firefighter location, a huge amount of noise in that market. It was really a hard technical problem to solve, and no one had a perfect solution for it in a way that required 100% hands-off use, which is what a firefighter needs. And for everybody, the technology was immature. So I think we were really early to market with a brilliant concept, but we were really early to market. So I'd say it was more the kind of technology stage. There were a lot of there are companies in graveyards all over the place who were targeting that market. But the question is why did some why were we able to kind of turn and get into another market and some weren't? And that all a lot of times comes down to money. Did you have enough runway? And did you pace your spend enough? Did you figure out that you shouldn't aggressively hire 100 salespeople when the product really, didn't meet the market need or was too hard to sell yet? And that's the stuff that you control when you kind of use a mix of dilutive and non-dilutive. If you have a hypothesis and you've promised a business plan to venture investors, and because I've been there and done that, right? Like, and next year you're saying, I'm going to make, this 5 million, and the next year I'm going to make 15 million. You better have hired a whole bunch of salespeople, and you're spending money in all kinds of areas to support that hypothesis. So the product fit ought to be there, better be there, because otherwise you've spent your money down, and because you've got a board that's expecting you to execute on a business plan. And they don't want to hear, well, actually, I'm not really sure. I wasn't really sure when I raised that money of the product market fit. I don't really know what the cost. I want to be a little bit, judicious with the money that I now brought in. Nobody wants to hear that when you've shown them an up and to the right, hockey stick. So I'd say you're right. That it can take a long time, but if you're able to blend it, and you've got a little bit of angel funding, you've got, some SBIR funding that might come in. You go after that TEDCO grant, and then you kind of, carefully use that money. I do think you can use it. It's hard, right? It was a hard run, but I do think you can do that in a way that allows you to be careful with the spend. You can as well if you get, raised from patient angels, and you're able to kind of manage your money spend in that way. I mean, that's another, kind of very viable, but they're only going to give you so much, and they're going to take a big chunk, when you're early.
I think, Carol, there's almost a parallel with medical device companies. It takes a long time to get to the market because of the regulatory hurdles. Funding is difficult very early on. So in all of our device companies, which start early, we always go for non-dilutive funding. No one is going to fund one of our ideas, which is presented on a piece of paper, scrap paper. We get a lot of those. So I think the the government is an early investor and a patient investor. And it does take a while to turn around proposals. But once you've got a stream going, it's not unreliable. And the other factor, I think, is retention of personnel. I don't think that a company like TRX could have succeeded solving this difficult problem on the West Coast. I always used to envy my West Coast buddies who would pitch some junk and raise millions of dollars, but their employees jumped around like crazy. Maybe you could comment a bit on your skills at retaining people. That's how you actually solved this problem.
So that is true. We've had, the only people TRX has lost really have been to PhD programs if they didn't have their PhD yet. But we really have had an amazing team, and I think that goes to the underlying, kind of technical staff. Carol Politi is on the phone here, and the cohesion of that team, and it just goes to our management philosophy of really putting employees first. I think employees are the company, and they really made solved the problem and made the company. So that has been a really vital thing for us. And fortunately, we were able to, all the way through, pay payrolls, and even if we had to dig kind of deep sometimes, we were able to do that. But we did not, ramp too fast. We were really careful on the ramp and on who we hired, and everybody kind of had a strong stake in the company. So we were everybody was a shareholder, and so we were all kind of in it for the long haul. And so I do think that really helped with getting to where we got.
Wayne has a question.
Yeah, thanks. I have a two-part question, and first part is follow over from what Gil was just asking. Independent of the retention of the people, with all of the grants and proposals and applications that you had out there, how many people were actually involved in just pushing papers to get funding? And then the second part of this is whether you used any professional organizations that specialize in grant writing.
No, two, I would say, and we were machines. Yeah, our CTO Carol Politi is on the phone here, and me, wrote most of the proposals. And it was a Herculean lift, to
I should
do
say
it.
Gil in the beginning.
Oh, and Gil, yeah, in the beginning. I'm sorry, Gil, pre me. But yeah, so it, there were, so that's three, right? Like, yeah, it was a big lift. It was a heavy lift. I don't know that there's any way to get around it being a heavy lift for a small number of people. It's really hard to involve too many people in that. And you just have to crank them. You have to crank it out and really focus. If you were going to raise venture funding, you would be on the road for 100 days. Well, depending on how much you're going to raise, but in my prior life, flying all over the place, pitch after pitch after pitch, honing the pitch, redoing the pitch, having the team involved in the pitch. It's all expensive. Getting money is expensive.
Right. How about the part of the question about whether you used any professional services for grant writing?
We didn't.
Thank you.
Jonathan?
Yeah, thanks. I actually have a question not related to fundraising, more about your product. I was just looking at the website. Have you thought about using this or marketing this towards like hospitals and healthcare? I can see it being useful.
We on the indoor side, there's and that gets to kind of an interesting series of long discussions that we had at the board level and everything else, like what do we focus on? the challenge, indoor nav was really where we started, and we do have, a substantial number of customers doing indoor nav today. There are competitive alternatives in the indoor navigation market that lend themselves to applications where you're tracking a large volume of assets or people in a defined space. And we tended to sell our product, and still tend to sell our product in areas where you're tracking a smaller number of people over a large space. So the question is, can you deploy infrastructure, and is there a return on investment on the infrastructure, or do you put the money in the tracker on the person and don't have infrastructure? And because early on, the competitive dynamics were super confusing in that space. I mean, everything was evolving. It was unclear what would be right. Should we go consumer? Should we go defense? Should we, and it was in hindsight, it's really kind of very clear, but early on, it was not clear that the hospitals weren't a good idea, right?
Cool. Thank you.
I think, in fact, there was a lot of resistance, Carol, when I went to the medical center. People didn't want to be tracked, especially the doctors. So
I wasn't thinking for employees, actually. I wouldn't want to be tracked either, but I was thinking more for like dementia units or babies. So.
Yeah, I do think that was the other thing. There were some markets where I know Gil test drove medical, we test drove police. There were some markets where people just didn't want to be tracked. They did not, there was security issues or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want them knowing my napping place. I get that.
Other questions? Feel free to jump in.
So it's a personal question, Carol. If you had to do it again, you came on board again, what would you do differently? Or would you come on board again?
I don't know. So Gil and Carol recruited me to come on board yeah, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. It was a fantastic ride. It was probably the hardest thing. It was hard. It was certainly hard. But we are having a ball now. We're so happy to be adding value to the Army. We're so grateful that they've awarded us significant business, and we're developing products that are a ton of fun and doing a whole bunch of new R&D. So it's we're successfully producing stuff at volume. It's really satisfying. So I would say, in a heartbeat, if you told me when you recruited me that that in the coffee shop that I would still be here now and it would have taken this long, I don't know if I would have said yes.
Yeah, I have to say I was surprised. I thought I didn't think it was as hard as it turned out to be, but I didn't think it would take as long either. So I think we were both in that coffee shop under a kind of misimpression on what was likely to happen. So, but it was a hell of a ride, Carol, hell of a ride. So
it was a heck of a ride.
Yeah.
And I would say for everybody starting now, I mean, that is, there is no doubt that it's going to take, and everybody says this, but boy, this is really proving it's true, right? I mean, I think you guys got started originally in 2005 or something, and it's now 2022, and we were fortunate enough to sell the company to a group that we are really pleased to be a part of, ACR Group, and to be scaling very rapidly. That's a long haul. It was a long haul, but it was incredibly satisfying, and I think the art was we didn't give up, and we didn't run out of money.
How did your technical solution change over that time? I'm assuming the product today doesn't do what you initially thought it would technically.
No, so it went from a solution that was focused only on 3D location and was actually very centralized. It assumed a consistent connection kind of to a centralized environment, to a very distributed solution that can connect back to, kind of a server, but doesn't have to. In the middle, it was 100% SaaS focused. Now it's mostly perpetual. Any investor would tell you that's a really bad idea, right? You want to have a recurring revenue stream, but our market doesn't really want that. It doesn't work for them. So you kind of have to develop what the market will buy. And we do a whole lot more fusion of all kinds of stuff. We were heavily inertial technology, MEMS technology based originally. We're still leveraging a ton of MEMS and inertial, but now we're integrating all kinds of satellite technology. We were also very map focused initially, and we're still doing that, but now we're doing indoor and outdoor maps. And so I'd say it's architecturally changed. And whenever your product end user changes, your whole architecture has to change. So yeah, a lot's changed. At the heart, though, we're still delivering kind of a dot on the screen when you don't have GPS. Like that has sort of stayed the same since the company started.
Great. Thank you so much, Carol. That was very informative. And it was great to hear your amazing story. Would you please end with 3 concrete things that early stage entrepreneurs can do right now to create a strategy that balances dilutive and non-dilutive funding?
So 3 concrete things.
Yes.
Number 1, I'd say, go back to some of that. What are the considerations when you raise funding? Do I understand my product market fit? Do I understand my cost of customer acquisition? Have I proven my hypothesis? And if the answer to any of that's no, I think then you want to really be careful about how you raise money, how fast you raise money, and figure out a way to test market so you can kind of prove that hypothesis. So that is probably the main thing I would say that you want to do, is just make sure you don't just go raise money because that's what people do, to start a company. Figure out what you're going to build and how you're going to get to market, and whether someone's going to part with money, and how you prove that before you raise any scalable funds.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.